This video is actually part of a series of lectures that are in a class entitled The MBTI Learning Styles, the 16 Personalities. You can access this course at udemy.com, teachable.com, or thinkific.com. You can also find more information at studentsuccessbase.com, which is our website, and the information is in printed format on Amazon in both a paperback and Kindle versions.
So we've gotten to the very end of our personalities. This is number 16 of our 16 different types. I will admit that I do have notes because that helps me to differentiate them as I teach. But we want to remember that this particular type, the ISTP, is part of that directing. Remember, there's the sensing plus thinking, and they want to be part of action, facts, logic, and they pay attention to a lot of details. And the ISTP is really seen as more of a confident, independent, very determined individual. So their general description is that they're tolerant, flexible, quiet observers until a problem comes. And then they're going to really jump in and find a workable solution. They analyze, they readily get through large amounts of data, so they're data people. They like to isolate the core of problems, and they're interested in cause and effect. They are going to organize any kind of facts very quickly, and they value efficiency. Another thing to remember is that they are adaptable. They are action-oriented risk takers. Now, this type of learner falls into 5.4% of the total population. They're analytical and pragmatic. So I like to think of them as the logical problem solvers. So they're going to constantly ask the question about, how does this work? Let's look at their learning style. So we talked a little bit about that practical application, that they really need logical problem solving situations, right? But they're also interested in learning information that's going to help them to achieve their goals and to teach them on how things work. I like the idea of thinking about How This Is Made, that TV show. This is this kind of learner. They would love a show like that. They learn best through practical application, but they need to be actively involved. They are, however, independent learners. They really like complex challenges, and that is something that makes them a very effective learner, is when they're given a challenge to approach. They like small details, and especially if it has some kind of sequential information to it, they're intrigued by that logic and linear information. They're quick to learn. That's really exciting about this kind of learner, is that not only they're quick to assimilate and learn the information, but they're quick to apply it. And they're going to devote themselves to learning until they absolutely master the content. They consider themselves kind of a mastermind, even though they're very, very critical, highly critical of themselves. They're driven by a desire to learn the skills and to find a way to really use those skills. Remember, practical and realistic, analytical and logical problem solvers. Now, their classroom needs to be an active, hands-on learning environment, even though it's independent. And I know that gets to be difficult to create a classroom that is detailed, independent, active, and hands-on. It's a real challenge for instructors sometimes, but they really need clear guidelines within those confines. Now, small group and partners will work effectively for them, but remember, they really are introverts. They like that independent side. They want to ask questions. They need an opportunity to ask questions. They need to have a lot of different activities to learn something, because that's going to reinforce the validity of the information. And they're very effective and efficient researchers. When we look at areas in which they're most comfortable, they're independent, observing, reflecting, hands-on, practical, reviewing, facts, figures. So you can see all of these things. Now, when they are uncomfortable, and this is the really difficult thing, because these are people who tend to be more quiet, right? They are action-oriented risk takers, and they're independent. But when they become uncomfortable, because maybe they're part of group work or the center of attention, or maybe there are no objectives or rubrics, or here's one, maybe they feel like there's no reason to learn this. My daughter did this the other day. She came home from school and said, I sat in Algebra 2 the other day and I asked my instructor, when am I ever going to use the quadratic formula? And my teacher says, you will use it every day. I said, I'm going to be a music teacher. Please tell me how I will use the quadratic formula every day as a music teacher. And the teacher said, "You will use it every day. I don't need to provide an example." Oh my goodness. Suddenly that information became very pointless to her. And we want to make sure that we don't create situations like this for our learners. We want to energize them and to really create a desire for them to be a lifelong learner. When we create a situation that's uncomfortable for the ISTP, they become cynical, negative. They're going to withdraw themselves. They're going to quit making decisions. They're going to postpone their energy, and they're going to overlook people that are around them, especially the needs of other people. So some ways that you can really help to teach these kinds of learners is to help them realize that you are very knowledgeable. They are going to prefer to have somebody who knows what they're talking about than to have somebody that they like. So make sure that you have a high command of the information before you approach this kind of learner. And this may even require that you prove that you know what you're talking about as a teacher. So be sure that you provide valid resources and even give a resource list to them. Say, per the Department of Education, yada, yada, yada. But make sure that you give also some real life examples that will help to really implant this information into the learner and let them know that what you are telling them is both effective, important, and validated. You want to give a lot of opportunities for encouragement. And remember that the more connections that an ISTP learner is going to make, the greater the memory is going to work. That's why you want to create a variety of instructional methodologies. You want to give them challenges and problem-solving opportunities as well. Remember that they really like question and answer times, so make sure they have question and answers times, and encourage their questions. And really, really approach their questions with great sincerity. Don't ever say that there was a stupid question. I don't like that anyways, and it's really not appropriate for a teacher to say that was a stupid question, but we really want to encourage the questions of our students and give them time to reflect. As a learner, remember that there's always places that you can grow. So you really want to develop your thinking and your sensing, even though that they may not be your strong dominant points. You want to remember that even though you're a really effective learner and you desire that proficiency and mastery, that you really need to take time to find real life applications and to have patience for other people. Take some time to reflect, to organize some ways to build and to scaffold your knowledge. You may want to organize your learning with things like charts and goals and learning journals, Gantt charts, anything like that, and create your own personal challenges. Don't wait for an instructor to provide challenges because they might let you down. My perfect, most wonderful example was an ISTP student that I had who said, "I went to class and I didn't learn anything. And so I went home and I Googled the information so that I could find more details." And his point was that he had wasted his time unless he learned something about that topic. So therefore, the time in class was no longer wasted because although he didn't learn anything during that hour he was in class, the topic was brought to mind and he went home and learned something. So make sure that you also provide your own challenges. Have patience with others and especially your teachers. Remember that they're human and they may make a mistake. That doesn't mean that they don't know what they're talking about. Be sure to find time to meet with your teachers and emphasize that you have this really desperate need to have some clear objectives. And most of all, like all things, I really, really emphasize the idea of keeping a learning journal. Write down what works best for you and what doesn't so that you can continually go back to those notes.